I watched Scoop and kind of feel bad for Prince Andrew. That sounds crazy, right? I mean, nobody would feel that way. Anybody? Yep, there's a column for that. We are talking about the latest from the Daily Mail. Watching Scoop makes me think Prince Andrew was played by Newsnight. And now, unbelievably, I'm starting to feel sorry for him. I'm actually going to break this up into two main sections. MeToo movement and characters versus caricatures, which leads into a conversation about the state of journalism. Before we get into it, let's talk about how this column opened. Anyone who watched the original Newsnight interview with the Duke of York, I came away from it appalled. How could he not apologize to the victims of his predatory friend Jeffrey Epstein? Just Epstein's victims. Okay. How ridiculous and comical the whole idea that he couldn't medically sweat, or suddenly not knowing where the nightclub Tramp was located. All of this is setting the table, creating a permission structure for what is to come. And of course, the inability to sweat and not knowing where Tramp nightclub is. Yes, it was ridiculous and maybe comical. I don't know about you though, but for me, my laughter reply was really a response to the deeply disturbing realization that this man has no remorse for anything he has done, or that he believes his own lies. The writer goes on to say that, like most people, she was all, "You go, girl," when interviewer Emily Matlas slowly skewered Andrew on TV. Emily certainly did a great job of preparing all the ingredients to create these skewers, but Andrew skewered himself. It was deeply satisfying to see someone do their job as a journalist, one that Emily does not take lightly.
Reminder that journalism, at its most profound, carries a huge weight of responsibility.
And this leads into the backlash against the MeToo movement, which really is at the heart of this piece. The writer is purely going off of Scoop, the movie, which is a dramatized, fictional version of actual events. She calls the plot of the story, how the interview was procured, was a sort of sub-Watergate mess. Is she mad about the Watergate reporting? The theme, needless to say, is female empowerment in a post-Me Too world. I don't think that is meant as a positive. She says we're reminded many times why these women are out to, quote, nab the prince. Do you think if men had secured this interview, she would have been using the word nabbed? She makes it sound like the sole goal of these professional women was vengeance, which plays into the whole Me Too movement is just a bunch of angry women. They don't have a score to settle with him. Their score to settle is the truth and reporting on the truth. Here's why she finds the process disreputable and something close to duplicity. I know, LOL, because it's from the Daily Mail. Sam, the booker, buys Amanda Thirsk, the private secretary to Prince Andrew, a drink where they have a discussion about the potential interview. And the fact that she says that this is Andrew's opportunity to set the record straight. The horror! If she'd only offered, I don't know, cash for titles, the British media would have had no problem with it. As if lunches and drinks on the company card aren't a key component to this media world. This could have been an opportunity for Andrew to set the record straight. He missed the opportunity. And he and his team were under no qualms about how this interview would be conducted and the fact that there would be no red lines.
I spoke to Buckingham Palace on the phone, but it was clear they weren't going to let us ask all the news questions that at that stage would have been important to us as a programme. He wanted to talk about all the fantastic work he was doing, what we would call a puff piece in the trade. And nobody asked him a difficult question. We don't do those. So we turned down that interview.
The events in Scoop are over a period of 13 months. It took patience, it took work, it took not giving in to demands that wouldn't have led to a full and fair interview. She also says that the protagonists are female, but that doesn't make the process fair. Oh no, trust me, we know that. We know what duplicitous, lying, terrible female journalists look like. The final Me Too nail in the coffin is she thinks the production team wants to make Andrew look like a buffoon and they want to destroy him all over again. That is another argument against the Me Too movement. How far does this go? What does justice actually look like? Haven't these powerful men been through enough? The book Monsters has an interesting conversation about this, and I think one can be had, but it has to be done in good faith. This is disingenuous. Was Prince Andrew destroyed? It took immense pressure to strip any titles. His mother settled his SA suit out of court, still lives at the Royal Lodge. To be destroyed all over again, wouldn't you have to be destroyed in the first place? Aren't these just the consequences of your own actions? Which leads into characters and the real people behind the story. The writer ends this piece with, "This new film shows Andrew to be human, but I'm not sure that's what the Newsnight team intended. Not at all." For starters, she's conflating the Newsnight team with the movie, but portraying someone as multi-dimensional should be the goal, but I understand why it is so jarring to actually see when you exist in this media ecosystem where people are either all good or all bad. And either way, it is dehumanizing because they become caricatures of themselves. I think Rufus Sewell did an excellent job playing Prince Andrew. Ironically, the author falls for the same thing that his private secretary Amanda fell for. This writer describes the private secretary as caring and maternal. I don't doubt that. She is very clearly on Andrew's side. It's a reminder that Prince Andrew is very good in person with people. So it can make it almost unbelievable that any of these things are true. For people with narcissists and sociopaths in their lives, this is very, very familiar behavior. The writer remarks that Andrew just seems lonely and that he was played by, again, those malicious women at the BBC. He was, quote, hideously exposed. The prince has been tutored to have no self-awareness at all. He truly believed he had nothing to hide, end quote. Is it that, or has he grown up in a world where he is literally entitled and feels entitled to take whatever he wants? Does he feel indestructible because he was mommy's favorite? So remarkable how the author gives Andrew no culpability in any of this. Sure, perhaps he is very lonely. Perhaps there are things that people like about him who have met him in person. Because he's a fully formed human, he's not a caricature. But to completely ignore the ways in which he brought this on himself and the way in which this is a familiar pattern of behavior for him, that is egregious. I'll end with this. She talks about how ghoulish the Newsnight newsroom looks as this broadcast goes out. The way they watch social media numbers go up like a fruit machine in Las Vegas. Her words, not mine. As if this very op-ed wasn't written and designed with social media in mind for a viral moment. As if this isn't completely ghoulish. Op-eds are meant to spark reaction and conversation. I don't think that means op-eds should lack depth or facts to back up the opinions presented. Discourse is so dumbed down. And this op-ed is just but one example.